what is authenticity if it's only being practiced in name only? A lot of people DM me privately because they're afraid of agreeing with me because they're looking for work. They're rewarded for fitting cleanly into a role. And I think that world is gone now. People with multiple identities right now aren't a distraction. They're often the ones who see around corners when systems start breaking.
This is the Future of the Future show. I am your host, Mateo Berbejillo. Today's guest sits right at the intersection of creativity, communication, and what it really means to be human at work. Victoria Flynn has built her career in marketing and communications, helping brands find their voice, tell better stories, and connect in ways that actually resonate. But Victoria isn't just a go to market expert, she's also a stand up comedian. And that combination makes her perspective especially interesting in a world increasingly shaped by AI, automation, and templated communication. In this conversation, we will explore her professional journey and the milestones that shaped her path, how comedy influences the way she thinks about storytelling and authenticity, and why humor can be a powerful tool not just for marketing, but for navigating uncertainty and pressure. If you are interested in marketing, storytelling, creativity, or how to stay human in an increasingly automated world, this is a conversation you will want to hear. Victoria, thank you so much for being here.
Mateo, thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation. I love your podcast, and I'm really excited to have a great discussion with you this morning.
Vicky, let's get started with the very basics. What do you do today for a living?
So, as of today, I run my own creative and strategic consultancy where I advise brands, founders, and creatives on positioning, partnerships, and communication. So I spent over a decade working in partnerships in SaaS and in go-to-market work, primarily in B2B. And so now I'm applying that experience across a wider range of industries. So that's where my formal background is, but then my training is in comedy and the humanities. So I attended Second City School of Improv as a child. I'm a stand-up comedian that has performed across the United States and internationally. And then I also have a bachelor's degree in political science, psychology, and sociology. So I do bring a very humanistic and human-forward approach to the work that I do. But ultimately, I help organizations and founders clarify what they're actually trying to say and build strategies that make sense to real humans outside of the org, not just the internal stakeholders.
I love it, and that's such an interesting background. Tell us about your biggest milestones on your path into marketing and communication.
So I was my path in, I was always a writer as a kid, and I won like poetry contests as a student and short story contests. And I've loved language. I speak French and Spanish. I went to French immersion school. So I learned quickly, though, my mother was a teacher, that writing or humanities by themselves are undervalued economically, especially in the United States. So I turned to something more broad. I decided to study psychology, and it gave language to things that I'd already been observing about people. And even though I didn't want to be a clinician, this became the backbone of how I approach communication. I would say the biggest milestones for me recently are that I've had some sketches and things I've written go viral. I've gotten to do speaking work around B2B partnerships, around panels for events marketing. And I mean, I get asked to go on the road with comedians who are bigger than me. They trust me to help them tour. And I would say getting to help advise on different LinkedIn strategies for broader businesses. I think that that's been really empowering. And I know there's many projects to come that I'm working on, and I can't talk about them yet, but you'll hear about them in a couple months. So the milestones are happening right now.
Very happy to hear that. And let's talk about your passion and your experience and story with stand-up comedy. How does that influence or shape your work in marketing and communication?
So comedy in of itself is training in like pattern recognition or pattern interruption if you think about it. You're constantly noticing inconsistencies and then you're naming them clearly in a way that people can hear. For example, I don't know if you heard, but my American football team suffered a devastating loss this past weekend. We are no longer in the playoffs. The Chicago Bears lost. But last week I was at a show on stage and a man walked in with a Bears jersey and he was late to the show. And so I remarked on that. I said, "Oh, were you late because you were at church praying for us? Thank you. Let's give it up for him." And we applauded. Um, I think that's a great example of pattern recognition. But I noticed that while pattern recognition is often touted in organization, and these skills are essential for leadership, they're not always rewarded inside organizations. Comedians are trained to surface patterns early. We're trained to ask questions. Why is the thing that way? But in companies, that same instinct can be framed as negativity or disruption, depending on what you're commenting on. I think if you're an engineer and you caught a bug, that's great. If you're a seller and you noticed that your prospect is taking a while to respond, that could be a clue. But let's say you're in a company kickoff and every department is presenting 8 slides, but then product only talks about 2 slides. That might indicate there could be trouble brewing, but you're not supposed to talk about it. And that's, I find that's constantly something that is difficult because increasingly we're moving towards authenticity. That's what everyone wants. But what is authenticity if it's only being practiced in name only? So I would say that is one of the reasons why I have moved off into my own business, because a lot of times being able to call out those inconsistencies is viewed as less threatening when you're coming from outside the organization.
That makes sense. I love it. Pattern recognition, pattern interruption or disruption. Um, that's very interesting. That's certainly part of the snippet we will have for this episode. Um, in an age where AI and automation are transforming communication, how important do you think storytelling remains, and what does, we were talking about this just now, authentic human communication mean to you now?
So I think AI has made creation abundant. Like creation, I'm going to use quotes here. Creation or output is not the issue. It's because it's exposed something uncomfortable. We're training systems right now on existing data, which means we're increasingly operating in a closed loop. So the bottleneck isn't production now, it's original thought and judgment or taste. And these things don't come from optimization, they come from literacy, they come from studying the humanities. I don't know many philosophy majors that get to practice philosophy now as adults. It comes from lived experience or being able to synthesize across domain. And I think it's interesting seeing particularly the CEO of Instagram's post at the beginning of the year calling for creators to continue to create because I think they've run out of stories to train the robots on, maybe. This might be a hot topic. I've noticed lately, every time I've written something on LinkedIn that brings up a point like that, a lot of people DM me privately because they're afraid of agreeing with me because they're looking for work. So, I think right now the fact that I work for myself allows me to say things that other people might be thinking. Um, I just think that yeah, what we're seeing right now is companies are encouraging people to create because they need new data and ideas,
Yeah.
but they're still hesitant to fully value or protect the creators that are generating those ideas.
How, when we talk about valuing those individuals, what does that mean? How will you explain what not being valued means, for example, in that sense?
Oh, I think the amount of brands that reach out to like if you look at content creation, the amount of brands that reach out to content creators for asking them to do work for free, saying it would be great for exposure, or saying, "Oh, we can send you our free product." Um, I had a brand offer to pay me in coffee for what would have been like five figures of work easily. Um, I think also expecting creative work to be just included as part of your job. I've generally been hired for roles that are accountable to revenue and are judged by sourced partner revenue for me specifically in partnerships. And then very quickly, partner marketing also became my role. So that's creative work. The fact that I can make flyers or edit videos because of the work I do outside of tech started to become something that I could use to fill gaps. And but it's not being recognized or compensated extra. So I've noticed that's a trend in a lot of for a lot of folks. And I think that the same is people downgrading the concept of humanities degrees. For years, everyone said go into STEM,
Yeah.
go study coding. Oh, you want to be poor? You can study English and writing. And what I think is actually going to happen is because of this crisis of data and ideas, is people with liberal arts and humanities degrees are actually going to be in high demand. I think that's going to pendulum's going to swing back the other way. It's going to take a little bit, but everybody who was a copywriter was let go because of ChatGPT. That's kind of what I see on LinkedIn right now. Is so many excellent writers are without work or looking for work, but then I keep reading all of this horrible AI slop on LinkedIn. So I think those folks are going to have some jobs pretty soon.
I like what you were saying about judgment and taste and everything that comes into being a creator and how you absorb a lot of things and then you process all of that and then you create new things, right? And I heard people talk about the value of a creator being in the aesthetic lens that creators have in terms of what they are looking at. There's so much content right now that means you are curating what is coming through you and what's coming out of you, right? And curating means the music you listen to, the books you read, the places you go to, the people you get along with, etc., etc., etc. And the intentionality that you bring into the table when you are curating all of that. How does how does that work for you? How intentional are you in curating what you are consuming in a world where there's so much to consume and so much being pushed towards you? Am I making sense?
Yeah, how do yeah, I think so. You're asking get like I said, the content itself is not the problem. Production isn't the problem. So yeah, how are you discerning in what you choose to
Yeah.
bring in?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I think that hmm, think about this one. At least I think for me, I consider myself a very sensitive person. I don't like scary movies. Even if I like it later that night when I go to sleep, I'm gonna have nightmares. I've tried, like, even if I know it's not real, I can't do it. Like The Walking Dead, my partner, he loves The Walking Dead. I can't watch it with him because I'm gonna wake him up at night. He said I'm not allowed to anymore because he needs sleep. So, I think for me, it's am I witnessing pain from others? I think that's really important. Am I witnessing something that reaffirms negative emotions or experiences? That's one. Two, whenever I'm looking at particular content, for the most part, who's paying for it is my first question I ask myself. Like, who is paying for this to be created? And that usually helps to dictate a lot of what I may be watching or consuming. And then lastly, why am I consuming it or what is the goal? Sometimes we just want to watch something with no value. We, especially for people who work remote, we spend all day staring at a screen. We are subconsciously absorbing information all day. We're no longer just in meetings where you have a notebook and a pen, where you can actually just let things marinate. So I do think that there's value in just kind of brain rotting or sitting and watching like a reality TV is what some people do. But also, if I don't feel well after watching something, asking myself why. So I don't like reality TV either because if I go to a friend's house, we might be watching it. I see that I start to feel bad because I start to think about how we're watching someone's life or not even watching someone's life because I know friends in reality TV. We're watching a manufactured conflict. And why is it the human condition to want to watch someone else's conflict? And what does that say about what we're valuing and focusing on? So, to bring it all back, also, I love books. I frequently use my phone. I use this app, they're not a sponsor, called Blocked, which is a physical magnet. I have to go walk to my fridge. I click it. I can't access any of my apps. I put ChatGPT in there too. And then I will read a book. And that really helps as well because I actually feel less stressed and relaxed. But I
Love
think,
it.
yeah, I'm sorry. That was like a more of a ramble. Like, I'm still trying to figure it out.
It's
There's some
very
things that,
intentional. I love it. I
yeah,
love it. There's a lot. I think you as an artist, as a comedian, I see comedians as artists, and you are. I think there's something intentional about the way that you consume information that comes from being an artist. That's what I think.
yeah, like if I read political headlines a lot, because I run a weekly late night style show that does political satire. The first question I'm asking is like, who paid for that,
Yeah.
or what's missing? What did they not say, and who wrote this?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there used to be a time where in the corporate world you needed to be this like corporate professional person, right? And that sort of line, I think it's it's blurring. What do you think? How do you see uh, people embodying and assuming their different identities? Has that changed in time from what it used to be? And in terms of in the company and when you're creating content.
Yes, I think that the old corporate model worked when companies were stable, closed systems, and there was a social contract that you exchange your life basically to then have safety, to have a pension, to be able to take care of your family, to be able to at least come home at a certain time, leave your work at the office, to afford the American dream of I don't know, 2 weeks of vacation and a night, two cars, and you know, going to Disney World maybe. But that old corporate model worked when companies were stable and closed system, and you were rewarded for fitting cleanly into a role. And I think that world is gone now. And now what matters is range, is context. A lot of what we see out there in economic theories and like people talking about the market assumes rational actors. Like economists assume human beings are rational. We are not. We are emotional driven creatures. And so I believe that people with multiple identities right now aren't a distraction. They're often the ones who see around corners when systems start breaking.
I love that. Creativity. Why do you think creativity matters in business beyond just selling? And can you share an example of your own experience where creativity made a difference?
Yes. Okay. So, I mean, I think creativity is how you escape dead ends. Company execution moves things forward, but creativity can change the direction entirely of something. And there's a real contradiction right now because companies say they want original thinking, but often only in theory. They want it for positioning, not for problem solving. And I think that's why there was an article in The Atlantic at the end of December talking about how um, brands are trying to hire storytellers. And overnight, everyone's LinkedIn profile had storyteller in it. All the copywriters changed it to storyteller. Um, and I think that that same kind of thinking that gets you hired externally initially to maybe find a better way to talk about something or selling, or at least go to market, can feel threatening when you apply it internally. And I think that tension is very real. It's one of the biggest leadership challenges organizations face today. But I can talk about a time when creativity for me benefited something that wasn't sales. I in an internal enablement, I found that we needed a better way in one of my partnerships roles to show our wins to the company internally. And because the program was very new, we didn't have a whole bunch of sourced revenue yet. We had pipeline, but given it was an enterprise company, you need 12 months plus to have those things close. So followed Spotify wrapped format and created a like couple of slides in the same brand, like similar branding, to then showcase internally all the extra leading indicators that were popping up for partnerships and all of the work, the meetings, all of the things that had gone into getting us to where we were. And that was very well received, not only because it was creative, it was a break in patterns from typical, QBR structure. It also was relevant and contextual because Spotify Wrapped had just been released like that week. And then we played, I can't remember who had won that year, but we played one of the songs to kind of just add some level of enjoyment or entertainment to it as well. And that it was very well received internally.
That's some nice relief from the typical deck of slides, right?
Yes.
Very nice relief. I'm sure I'm sure your coworkers were very happy to see something different there. Um, you also worked across different countries, with probably different cultures. What are the challenges and opportunities of doing business or marketing across national boundaries?
Oh my gosh. Aside from right now, they're the only people that can tell me what's happening in the news properly. Yep, you might want to clip that. No. Um, I think, okay. I mean, the opportunity obviously is that you want as much information and ideas from different perspectives and people that did not grow up how you grow up. And this to me does not feel like a hot take, but I forget that I am like a bicultural American. So I realize a lot of people don't think that way. I think one challenge in general for either side, for anyone, Americans, non Americans, is assuming that your norms are universal, especially in the United States. A lot of United States people, a lot of Americans were not really trained in school to interrogate the norms of others critically and like compassionately. We were a lot of, and I didn't go to American elementary school, so I have know this from talking to my friends. You're not really taught to think globally or consider other perspectives. And I once worked a deal where the economic buyer was on maternity leave in Canada, and the sales director at the time suggested we go around her. And I tried to explain, well, one is that's not only bad strategy, that's illegal, that's in violation of Canadian labor laws. And they didn't believe me at first, but I said that would be very poorly received. We need to actually consider this. And I think America, we forget we are such a young country. Everyone else thinks in centuries, we're thinking in decades. And so we're thinking, no, we can just push harder. We can just persevere. We have all of these movies about how we beat other countries in the Olympics because we tried harder. And I think that that's not always the best uh, way to do things. That moment stuck with me because it showed how important context, humility, and curiosity are when you're working across borders.
As a Uruguayan from South America, I can say that I agree 100% with everything you just said, and I love the take on perspective, curiosity, and context. Right? It's so important. So yeah, I loved your answer. Um, Humor can be a powerful tool, both in marketing and in life. How do you use humor to navigate tough times personally or when helping a brand communicate under stress or crisis?
Okay. Oh wow. Well, I mean, to communicate tough times personally. Um, I mean, look, I'll preface this by saying that I think a lot of times people say you shouldn't bring politics into business, but even the fact that I'm talking to you, a non-US citizen, is inherently political at this time in the whatever is going on in the United States. And I think humor isn't about minimizing seriousness. It's about creating enough space to think clearly. It interrupts panic and it helps people regulate, laughter does at a neurological level, so they can actually process what's happening. For brands, it's not usually about jokes, it's about tone, honesty, and naming reality. But I think when it comes to using humor as a tool to perhaps critique certain administrations or to call out bad actors, I think it's incredibly powerful because it keeps their fear from being a tool that can be used. You don't laugh at things you're afraid of. And I think that's also why, historically, dictators across history have always gone after the comedians and the people who speak out first. That's why Jimmy Kimmel got in trouble. So, yeah, I guess for me personally, there it is a strategic move right now that the news cycle in the United States is overloaded with contradictions, atrocities, violations of the Constitution, etc. And the way that I deal with that personally is by writing about it in a funny way, because that not only keeps me from ignoring it, because I was so saddened at some of my previous jobs when I would have colleagues that would just say, I don't watch the news. My therapist said it's stressing me out. And so then they don't. When I was in Chicago, actually, with ICE helicopters overhead, my colleagues in New York didn't even know,
Right,
or they'd because they didn't watch the news anymore.
right.
And that was fascinating because I went to a trip in Europe and every the Germans came up and apologized to me. The New Yorkers didn't talk about it, but if when the Germans come up to you and apologize, that's when you know things are bad.
Yeah. Um, how do you So I was talking, I did a podcast last week with someone that worked in the media industry, right?
Mhm.
And we were talking about something similar to what you are saying. It's so convoluted right now, it's so polarized. It's hard to even, and it goes back to being an artist and being able to being super intentional about what we consume. It's so hard right now to understand, what to consume and where, right? Because truth and facts and everything, it's just, I don't know, it's like you said, who paid for this, who is this coming from, what's the intention, etc., etc. You're super intentional about that. What do you think about today about the media? Do we still trust certain sources? How do you go about it? And you talked about Kimmel, etc., but how do you think things are right now? Are people being able to express themselves freely? What do you think about that? I know it's a loaded question, I'm sorry, but
Okay. No, that's fine. I'm just kind of writing down the question so I can stare at it for a second. Let's see. Okay. Um, I think that, yeah, okay. Validating that right now it is hard as an artist or creator to be intentional because the information environment is intentionally noisy. Um, and that makes judgment harder. But I think we're in a moment where people are relearning how to trust their own discernment. But to be quite frank, I do not trust the American education system to teach discernment. That's not it doesn't benefit uh, companies to have a bunch of people that question things. um, the way that I make sure I find news, yeah, one is who's paying for it, and two, I have friends all over the country. And at least for now, not country even. Oh, sorry, I need to turn that off. Friends all over the country. Ugh, shut up. It's worse than having Slack messages come up. I love a Zoom demo. Okay, let me answer that. What was that? Okay. I have friends all over the globe. So I
Right.
will frequently message my friends in Denmark or Canada, England, Australia, Mexico, and ask them what is their news showing them.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I, at least for now, knock on wood, I still have access to people outside of the country. And that helps me to like be more discerning. I first thing I do when I have a question about something is I'll Google thing, comma, Guardian UK.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, not even the BBC because they've shown to be very like yeah, imperialist in a lot of ways too. But I actually met some of the folks who work at The Guardian at a marketing conference, and they're all very sweet. And they too, when I was in London, apologized for what's going on. So I trust those guys for now. I just think that you can't trust it, especially if we're looking at current mergers in the United States with like Netflix and Warner Brothers. And the same reason why we stopped using cable in the United States, because there's only like two or three companies. And then streaming was so attractive. That's also what's happening right now.
Yeah.
It's the same that's happened with CPG companies. So I do think this has spawned a lot of creators who just read the headlines of the news, but then do their own research.
Right.
I have uh, friends who are reporting on that level. But again, the problem is a lot of folks have not been trained to read statistics. I see people, even on LinkedIn, I see people, not even for selling, just for news. I saw someone try to say, yeah, I'm not even going to repeat it because I don't want to give false
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
They were just saying, using false statistics to interpret it in a way, or interpreting statistics in a way that pushes a very
False
hate
narrative.
and false narrative. Yeah. And that always bothers me that there's an increasing amount of that on LinkedIn. And why is it always white men who don't seem to be bothered by the fact that we can tell where you work? And this is supposed to be the platform where at least you project who you would be professionally and where they think it's okay to say, disparaging things about 50% of the population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really in interesting times. There's a very interesting book on the topic. I was looking this way because I might have the book, but I don't have it here. Um, it's called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And I think he won like a economics Nobel Prize or something. I don't know. But basically, the guy talks about that. Talks about how most humans have a hard time thinking statistically, and how we are geared towards bias, and it's because it consumes so much energy to think about it in a different way, right? We are genetically engineered to go about our lives trying to minimize risk and minimize energy consumption, right?
Yes.
So you use a part of your brain that is going like, is it safe? Is it not safe? Is it safe? It's not safe. Eat this, go there, take this bus, blah 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 blah. Right? And the way you think about the world and the way you think about things, and confirmation bias comes into play and everything. It's like I have my systems of beliefs, even if numbers are showing me otherwise. I'm going to just stick with it, and I don't care, and I throw statistics out of the window for whatever side, whatever you think, right? Let's just leave that open. But it's amazing, and I think, to your point, nowadays that's getting worse, and it's getting worse in terms of the attention span of how we consume information and where are we consuming information. And some people, you said some people don't read the newspapers because blah blah blah. Some people get all of their news from Twitter, TikTok, and whatever.
Siblings, they're Gen Z. They use TikTok for their news.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is like, well,
that's cool. I mean, I think it's the same. I try to also, anytime I think something critical of the kids younger than me, I try to think, okay, what was said about me when I was their age? Oh, they get all
right.
their news from Twitter. Yeah, Twitter was used to organize the Arab Spring, and then Elon Musk bought it because Twitter was powerful. Like, so I think that that's another reason what people don't think about with TikTok, the TikTok acquisition. I think, yes, data is one thing, but
Yeah.
being able to stifle the tool that was used to organize against Trump during COVID, I think is another added bonus, perhaps, of owning the platform. Yeah, sorry, what was your question? Or you were just I know that book. That book I read it in college. Because I for one of this, I can't remember what class, but maybe I just read it. But
It's a nice book.
yeah, yeah, I do think too, I think it's that the double-edged sword of that. My wiring personally, the way I am as a person, I pick up on patterns. Yes,
Yeah.
patterns sometimes that might not seem like they make sense, but they will in 8 months. And but that comes at the expense of uh it 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 comes at the expense of fatiguing faster. And I think it's important then to also make sure you protect time to rest.
Yeah.
I don't look at screens in bed. I have physical activity. And again, the act of practicing comedy, I think, is something a lot of humans don't get to do. And that allows me to like recharge and use a part of my brain that not a lot of folks in traditional white collar roles have access to. But I think that even the act of like improvisation when you're doing a warm up
Yep.
and I say a word, snorkel, you say what comes to your mind, ocean, I don't know,
Purple.
but you're training, yeah, but you're training you're training your brain to think of patterns and
Yeah.
to grow. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's very important that we use creativity as a tool to fight groupthink
Yeah.
and to keep ourselves on our toes and to go have conversations with people that you don't see eye to eye with.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. That's the most important thing. That's the most important thing. I have one final question to you. If you had to give one piece of advice to someone starting out now in marketing or communication, what would that be?
Ooh, okay. Learn how, a couple of things. Number one, create your own IP. Create your own who you are. Learn how to think, not just to execute. Closed systems reward compliance. And I think a traditional 9 to 5 is viewed as a closed system, but like we talked about earlier, that way is done. Stability is no longer promised. Open systems reward original thought, and we're living in that second world now. So build your own intellectual property, your perspective, your synthesis. That's what can't be automated, and that is what companies will hire you for. Yeah, they'll find a way if they want, if they like who you are and what you have to say, they will find a way to hire you for something. And read a book.
Go read a book. Go read a book.
Read
Um, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much, Victoria. I enjoyed it. Every piece of it. I could spend hours and hours talking to you. Um, and I hope that we can get to do this again in the future.
Yes, thank you. I had a great time, and yeah, I guess I just have to come to Latin America now.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.